the panel today, if I can have a complete honor. Sir Babar Ali, for those of you who don't know, is an absolute legend in Pakistan, and I don't use that word lightly or loosely. He has been on the board of Aitchison College, where I went to school and where he also went to school. And he has been instrumental in everything about education today. And anything, if anyone, at least living, has had an impact on education, it is Sir Babar Ali. I do not know, sir, how to introduce you, if I should introduce you as an industrialist, a pioneer.
I think that's enough. I think you've done enough. That's enough. That's enough. Thank you. Thank you, I think.
And then, of course, we are joined by the lovely Malala. As some of you might know, she has won a Nobel Peace Prize for education. Behind this elegant exterior, there are a couple of things that I do want to share, and then I might get into trouble. Because I believe that there's this side that a lot of people who are close to her at least know. And if I can share just a couple of stories, and then I'll start with the panel. So when I first, not when I first met her, but rather when I first had an encounter with her, was last term, or in Michaelmas, when she made her first public appearance at one of these Pakistan Society events. And it was a huge event. There were about 200 people. It was in a small JCR. Everybody was sweating. It was cramped and whatnot. And the whole crowd was in one place. And then when I looked over, they all wanted selfies and pictures and whatnot with the young lady here. And I cannot tell you that the sight was that she did not say no to anyone. She smiled for every single selfie. And that is who she is. Like, that is how down to earth she is. The other story is that in one of such settings, somebody gave her a compliment, and I think they started taking a picture. And all of a sudden, you see her hands go right up to her face, like she's trying to hide her face in shyness, and then she's trying to cover her face with her dupatta as well. So again, that is the type of girl that she is, that humble. Having said that, she is also, you do not want to make her mad. She is a notorious photographer. She will take pictures of you in your worst possible state, and then she will blackmail you for it. Also, you do not want her mad, because she does not need a security to break your arm. She almost did, and I have witnesses in case she denies. Of course, I would like to thank Professor Pritchett for agreeing to do this talk. As soon as I knew that he was at Oxford for this talk, I knew we had to get him here. And with that, sir, I will let you take over. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you enjoy the show.
So I'm very pleased to be here. I've just been at Oxford for 2 days, and I assume this is a typical day, being on such a distinguished panel. So rarely I'm the average age of the panel. And if you think about statistics, I'm about the average, but the variance is very high. We'll start with a question for you, which is Pakistan is in the midst, I think, of a lot of effort around education reform, particularly around the system of basic education. What do you think is the priority element for the education system in Pakistan?
Well, one is, you see let me go back. When the British left, that's 70 years ago, the percentage of people who were educated was only 14% in the whole of India. So it's a long way, but 70 years has been a long period for us to catch up. India has done a much better job. India today is in the 60% literacy at the primary level. We are still struggling around 50%. But with us, the bigger challenge really is not the numbers, it's the quality. And because we didn't invest enough in education, we don't have enough teachers. Teaching as a profession today is the last resort of anybody who wants to go into any career. And we are trying to sort of resurrect it and bring teaching profession back into well, not only in financial terms, but also in the social stature. We want to bring teachers who, when I was growing up, the teacher had a place in society. He was honored, respected. Even then, the salaries of the teachers were always not in line with other professions. But there was another compensation that was the kind of dignity and honor that is enjoyed in society. That disappeared, and we're trying to resurrect. So it's a long challenge. It's a big challenge. And so of course, you have to start at the primary level, and then secondary, and then into higher education. In all these three sectors, there is a fair amount of interest, improvement, investment, both by government and the private sector.
Mm-hmm. Good. I'd like to come back to the question of teacher training, and in particular education training in a second. But first, Malala, I want to ask a sort of two-part question. Your life has taken, I'm sure, what was a very unexpected turn from what you might have expected when you were 12 or 13 years old. And I want to ask a two-part question, which is, what's been the most surprising thing to you from being exposed as an activist on the global stage, exposed to the world? And I actually heard you speak at the UN when you spoke in the UN General Assembly. And then, that's the positive part. The negative part is, what are the sources of resistance to activism around girls' education that have surprised you?
Well, thank you so much. It's an honor to come here and speak. Thank you for the introduction. Mm-hmm. I think in terms of my perception and my concept of how the world works has changed a lot. While growing up in Swat Valley in the north of Pakistan, in this valley surrounded by mountains, my world was very small. And I think so is the case for many of us in many parts of the world, that our worlds are really small, our minds are really limited, and we don't think beyond a specific area, and we have set boundaries. And I think now that I have traveled across all regions in the world, almost all the continents, and I have visited places where children do not have access to education, whether they are refugees or IDPs or any other factor that's stopping them from having access to education. The world, I see a world from a different perspective. I see the world globally, and I'm just so grateful that I got the opportunity to have this experience and to know people more from across the world, and to meet people from different countries. It's a learning experience. On the negative side, I think, was the question that what has been the challenge, or?
Yeah, this, the resistance. Has there been unexpected areas of resistance to an effective agenda?
Like in terms of, okay, so I could just say anything. Okay. I think so when I started my activism, I was focused on Swat Valley. And my message was that every girl in Swat Valley should have access to education. And it was in 2007 that the Taliban came to our region. They banned girls' education. I was one of them. I was 11 years old, that I could not go to school. And my goal was that all girls there should be able to go to school without any fear and in peace. So then receiving support from people in Pakistan and outside allowed me then to campaign nationally and internationally. And for me, the most challenging thing is that there is still lack of funding and lack of investment towards education. And almost all the leaders I have met so far, whether they are from African countries or Asian countries or the American countries, all of them send their children to school, but they still do not invest in the education of the rest of the world's children. And I think that is something that we have to keep on reminding them, because it's not that they don't know what the importance of education. They do know. All of them went to school. All of them are sending their children to school. They want them to complete their university education, but we need to now convince them to actually and practically invest in education for the rest of the world, and something that is taking a while, but we are getting there. We are succeeding.
Thank you. So to come back, I understand that you were instrumental in both founding some of the earliest teacher training in Pakistan, and have also recently, in your connection with LUMS is launching a school of education that is, I think, more focused on policy training rather than teacher training. Do you want to describe a bit what you see as both challenges, the challenges of training an effective cadre of teachers and the challenges of training people who can actually kind of conceive and promote a higher quality learning system in Pakistan?
Let me first address the Teachers Training Institute. This we started about 15 years ago. We felt that there was a lot of room and a lot of potential in training of teachers. You see, the government had gone on a massive recruitment drive to recruit teachers without any training. I mean, they had set a certain standard of education for the primary schools. It was as low as matriculation, and then FA, and then BA. But all these people that went into teaching at the primary and the secondary level had no prior teaching training at all. So what we thought was that we should start a teacher training program where we bring in practicing teachers for duration, especially during the summer holidays, and upgrade their skill in teaching. And so this is an ongoing process where it's open to private schools as well as to public schools. And the fees are hardly any fees at all. This is funded by a foundation which supports the running of this teachers training program. And we get get trained teachers who have excelled in teaching as a skill and as a profession, and we are so this is an ongoing thing. And as you have to train tens of thousands of teachers, so one training school is not enough, but the whole idea is to set a pattern and show this as an example so that others can do it. Now, going back to the School of Education at LUMS, we felt that there was much need for people to train people who would impact the policy on education and work with the government on that account. See, unfortunately, in our setup, the bureaucrats that we have or the politicians that we have, there is no longevity in a particular subject. I mean, as secretary to government, who could be a secretary of education today, in a couple of years' time, he is moved to another department. So the continuity is missing. Likewise, the kind of horizon of the politician, he cannot see beyond the next election. So for education, you've got to have policies which are not beyond your election, but even beyond your lifetime. You've got to sort of work on that kind of a timetable. So the whole purpose of the School of Education is really to produce people who would dedicate their lives to improving the quality of education, both in the policy matter, in the development of curricula, also in the pedagogy of teaching. There aren't enough institutions there. So this is what we are embarking on, and thank you for your support in guiding some of our people who are looking at this this new challenge that we have.
And you're just recruiting apparently your first generation.
Yeah, the first
students.
we actually the application date was last week. And
I missed that.
So we plan to start with about 35 candidates for MPhil program. These are already graduates who have taken the GRE examination for the, and the effort there is to have diversity, both gender diversity as well as regional diversity, because this is the first real school of education in the whole country. So we want to bring in young students from all over the country, and hopefully we will be able to achieve that. We had about over 200 applications from all over the country, and hopefully we can select good 35 students.
That's great. So if I could come back to so you've been a prominent activist, particularly for female education. Some resistance, I'm sure, comes from the notion that there are gender norms in the world and that certain things are appropriate for women and other things aren't, and that since women maybe many feel women aren't going to be in the labor force, they're not going to be productive workers, the need for female education isn't that important. What's the response you give to that?
I think firstly, it's important to so there's lack of education, but then you have to look into reasons why there's lack of investment in education, why there are no schools, why parents don't send their children to school, and even though the issue in general looks quite simple, 130 million girls are not in school right now. Looks very simple, but when you try to look into reason, it's much more complicated, and it varies across regions. In some places, it would be the social, the traditions and the norms that would prevent children from having access to education. In other places, it's poverty, it's gender bias, or it's lack of infrastructure. So these reasons vary, and looking at my capacity, looking at the potential that I have, and the response and the support that I have received from people, for me, it was important to use that in the best way as I could to ensure that we highlight education globally, bring it to the mainstream media discussions, bring it to the main political decisions, bring it to the top and make it their priority. So in terms of, so I do two things. I do advocacy, and then I do projects and work on ground. And in terms of advocacy, I try not to be the only representative, but I involve other young girls as well and people from the region. So if I'm going to Nigeria, I would have Nigerian girls sitting with me. If I'm going to Rwanda or Kenya, I would have local activists and local people there so they can raise their voices and they can highlight the issues. But in terms of advocacy, there are G7, there's G20, there's the UN, there's the Commonwealth. These are all the global platforms that we have got in which they talk about, recently they're talking about women empowerment, they're talking about sustainable development. And what my goal is to keep on reminding them that you have to invest in education in order to achieve all these things, whether you want to tackle climate change, whether you want to fight against poverty, or whether you want to reduce gender disparities. You have to focus on education. That's the first thing that comes, education and health. So it's pushing for that, and it has been quite successful. In 2015, when the leaders were deciding the Sustainable Development Goals at the UN, after 15 years when they had decided that Millennial Development Goals. In Millennium Development Goals 15 years ago, they decided to focus only on primary education. And which was unfortunate because you set the goal and then they don't reach the goal anyway. So most countries did not even succeeded to give primary education to all their children. This in the Sustainable Development Goals in 2015, Malala and other organizations, we were really involved to push for 12 years of education, which means both primary and secondary education. And it was a big challenge because they went to 9 years, but we say 9 years is not enough. 9 years is like up to GCSEs, a year below GCSEs in the UK. And so we said that you need to give complete education to all children so that then they have the opportunity to decide their careers, their life ahead. And if you only give primary education to girls, most girls would drop out after that because there are no schools, but also that most girls would, and most other parents would also think that what is the point of sending your child to primary school when there is no other opportunity to complete their school. So, so that was the advocacy we did, and we succeeded. Now it is part of the UN Sustainable Development Goals to have 12 years of education, both primary and secondary. And the same is the case, like, Commonwealth, their meeting, we pushed for education, and the response we received was just amazing and incredible, involving the UK to increase their support to funding for education. Same is the goal for G7, for G20. So I'm trying to reach to the places where they're making policies. But then also I strongly believe in local activists and local advocates for girls' education, and that's why we started this project, which we call the Gul Makai Network. Gul Makai was the pen name that I was using for my blog for BBC while I was writing about my life under Taliban and when I was not allowed to go to school. So taking that vision that local activists can bring change, we are now supporting local activists in Pakistan, in India, in Afghanistan, Mexico, Nigeria. So it's global because the issue is also global. So our reach is global. And it's been amazing how they are bringing change locally, but they're also advocating in the local areas, nationally. So there's this whole movement of advocacy building up. And the positive thing is that there are other people as well, just like Babar Ali Saab, who are working to work on the policy level to make sure that we have good teachers, quality schools, and so yeah, I'm positive.
Great. Before I turn it open to the audience for questions, which we will, I'm going to ask one more question of each, and you can all be getting ready for what you would like to ask our panelists. But you're an industrialist. The private sector, particularly sort of what one might call mom and pop, not elite private schools, sort of low-cost private schools, have been a massive expansion phenomena in Pakistan. How do you see that? Do you see that as a promising dynamic, as a sort of as a threat, as an opportunity? How do you see the engagement of the private sector at the sort of system of basic education level?
Yeah. Well, I can tell you in my province of Punjab, which is half the population of the country, there's over 100 million people there. Almost 50% of the primary schools are in the private sector. And people have found that it's an opportunity. And the poor person has realized, the person who never went to school, he realizes that the only way his children can break out of poverty if they have education. So he is willing to invest a major part of his income into the education of his children. Unfortunately, the quality that he's getting is very poor. But it's because there will be competition, so he will have to improve, he'll have to give. But there is one other aspect which Malala just mentioned was on the health side. In Pakistan, we are faced with massive malnutrition of the younger generation. Almost 45% of our children suffer from malnutrition. And that means there's stunted children. So, when children go to school, they are hungry and they can't study. And, the development of the brain takes place before the age of 12. And if they don't have proper nourishment. So I am advocating with the government and also demonstrating in the few schools that I'm involved in is to give free lunch. Not only free lunch, but free breakfast also. It doesn't have to be elaborate. I mean, there are 3 schools that I'm running in the village that I'm looking out for the family. We give 2 dates and a banana for breakfast. The whole idea is in our country, you see, because of the logistics and the supply chain, things get adulterated as they travel around. Take, for instance, milk. As it leaves the udder of the cow, it's pure milk. But it reaches the consumer, a lot of milk, water has been added to it. And for lunch, we are giving in these schools a boiled egg and 2 boiled potatoes with the skin on. You know, it's nourishment. I've had people check out on the nourishing aspect of it, on the nutrients aspect. So you don't have to give them elaborate things, but you've got to fill up their stomach with something which is nourishing and which cannot be adulterated. Boiled egg cannot be adulterated, nor can boiled potatoes. So these are things we've got to think outside the box, and I've got some of the universities working on coming out with recipes of simple local food which is nourishing. So nourishment, and you know, India has started a free lunch program in their schools. Pakistan has not. It's still being discussed and debated, but it's a big challenge. So with education, especially among the primary and the secondary, with the general population, you know, giving them nourishing food is as important as giving them education.
So one question is, as you say, you started off with your vision centered, as we all begin, you know, centered around our house and our local environment of the Swat Valley. Recently, I think you were in Africa. What struck you as the issues that were most the same between Africa and Swat Valley, and the issues that were just completely different, that you were sort of, wow, this is just completely different than the conditions we face?
I think issues vary across regions, and so in Swat Valley, there is this general perception that girls are supposed to get married at, especially, you know, by 16, the parents start thinking. And even by 14, if they feel like you're old enough, they will start. But it is changing, though. It has changed a lot in the last 10 to 15 years, and I think one reason that you mentioned is that the quality of education matters, the quality of school matters to parents. How long would it take for the child to get to school? Where is the school? Is it co-education? How many teachers are there? And I think it's not simply that parents don't believe in their children's education. There would be a few, but that's not the majority. And so one region, which is in Swat Valley called Kalam, there are 19 primary schools for boys, and there's only 1 school for girls. So you see the gender disparity there, and I think it is making sure that there is the infrastructure, there is that the government and the authorities, they actually go into those areas and see what is needed, and where there is lack, and what are the gaps that they can fill. To ensure that children have access to safe and quality education. In some places, it is the fact that there are no schools. In some places, there are ghost schools. The school is there, but no teachers go there, no students go there. So and then when I compare it to like places in Africa, well, Africa is a big continent, so you can't generalize it. In Nigeria, if you look at the south, it is kind of doing well, but if you look at the north, that is a place where there are extremists like Boko Haram, which was similar in Swat Valley, and they are banning girls' education. Most of them have been displaced. We don't even hear about them, but almost all the people I saw in Nigeria when I went to the Borno state, most of the girls were displaced. They had left their homes in the villages, in the hills, in the mountains, and also, like in Kenya, you see the issue of refugees and IDPs. There are IDPs from refugees from Somalia, from Congo, from the regions across, and that part is just has been in conflict for years and years. I went to Rwanda, and every person I met had been displaced. Had been displaced not just for a few months, but for years, including the president. He had also to leave his country, and so they have all gone through a lot, faced a lot of challenges, and you do see local activists and people passionate about education and working for education. And one girl who I met in Dadaab refugee camp in Kenya, her name was Amina, and her story was surprising and astonishing, but also inspiring. That her parents decided to go back to Somalia, And when she went back, she saw that in her village there was no school, and her parents were deciding to force her to get married. And she, through Facebook, contacted someone in Canada to help her. The person supported her. She got into a bus, traveled for 8 days, went back to the refugee camp in Kenya. And she left her family. She was ready to go and live in a refugee camp again, just to have access to an education, because she was aware that in order to follow her dream and to learn, it is the only way is education. So what is positive is that local people are realizing the importance of education. Girls are struggling for it. Many girls have, so one girl who I met in Iraq, in Kurdistan, a Yazidi girl who had faced many challenges, was forced to get married when she was 14. And she actually, on her wedding day, took off her high heels and ran away. And so these are the stories that tell you that you are not alone in this struggle. Everyone is part of it, and especially people who are affected by this, they're part of this struggle, and they're working each and every day. And these girls who I've met are still there in refugee camps. They're still studying. They are still fighting for their rights. And my goal is to then invite them and allow them to spread their message across. So the girl I mentioned from Iraq, Kurdistan, she came and she spoke at the UN in September 2017, and she raised her voice. The girl I met in America, who had been a refugee from Congo, who saw her mother killed in front of her, displaced, no dreams, and then finally getting access to education, and now achieving her goal to become a nurse and completing her education. These are the stories then that I want to highlight on global platforms, and both of them spoke at the UN, raised her stories in front of the leaders sitting in that room, so I'm hopeful, and I'm quite positive about the future when I see these activists.
Great. So we'd like to open it to questions. I am new to Oxford. Where I'm from, it's customary to say who you are, and it's customary to, in a question and answer period, ask a question.
Ask the panel instead of the individual.
What?
Well, we want the questions to be asked to the panel instead of the individuals.
Right. Okay, that's good. Why don't we start here? So why don't we take three at a time? And then
Sure.
we each can answer what we want. So 1, 2, and 3. We'll take those three first, and then I'll try and keep track of who's had their hand up.
Good morning. I'm Ilona Budapesti. I'm a master's student here at Oxford from Wolfson College. And I am not the first, but in a long time, first president of Oxford Entrepreneurs, which is the startup society here. My question to you is, being a female president, I've been pushing for, and with our team quite successfully managed to create a summer of code, teaching girls and women to code for free online. It was very difficult, but it took off, and now we have an opposite problem. We have about 2,000 women from 71 countries, 442 of whom are from Pakistan. We don't really know anything about the infrastructure in Pakistan, and we would love to share it with more people. If you could give us some advice, whether they have enough internet, or we need to reach out perhaps to co-working spaces or universities, so that we could maximize the effect of this free education and spread it to them, I would really appreciate it. Thank you. And if anybody here is passionate for women in tech or education, and you can spare a moment, please also suggest any way we can do global outreach. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm Catherine Dunville. I'm an undergraduate at Hartford. And I was just wondering, you mentioned early on in the talk about the struggle of recruiting teachers in Pakistan and how it's socially classed as a kind of like subpar job. And we very much have the same issue in the UK education system. And I was wondering, from a policy perspective and from an advocacy perspective, what do you see the solutions to this to be? And do you see them to be internationally spanning, or do you see them to be country specific?
Okay. And
thank you, first of all, for your talk. I think this was incredible. My name is Mason. I am an MPP student at the Blavatnik School. I'm currently working on a youth platform for realizing Sustainable Development Goal number 16 on just and peaceful societies. And I was wondering if both of you would have any examples of any youth projects that are really directed towards the Sustainable Development Goals in Pakistan, particularly because I think youth hold the power and the solutions for many of the challenges that they face in their societies. And so I would like to hear some of the stories and some of the projects that youth are working on so that we can help bring those out and give them the resources to bring that to the next step. Thank you.
Okay. May I take the first one? On infrastructure, you know, we have a population of over 200 million, and the number of mobile telephones is almost inching up to 100 million in the country. So they're right, and we have a network throughout the country, you know, as far as the Chinese border in the north and the Iranian border in the southwest, and up to Gwadar in the south. There is network is available, and so there is accessibility. Now the question is how to get these people to use these things in a more effective way. So that is catching on. There is distance learning is being promoted, but we have a long way to go. So there is things happening as far as the infrastructure is concerned. It is there, and it's being improved all the time. The speed of the network is being continuously improved. So that in that regard, I think there is a lot of hope and potential of things happening better.
It also depends on like which area you want to focus on in Pakistan. The cities, it would be very easy to introduce your projects there, and but I think if you would like to reach to villages, and I think there would be challenges, but it's not that it's not possible. As you mentioned, the internet is gone. It's just in every part you can have access to internet almost every part, and in some places you have like better signal than in the UK. So yeah, I get quite disappointed when I see that the phone is not working here in some places. But and I think we have technology, we have these new resources that we are getting through the advancement that we are seeing, and I think it's combining everything, bringing it together. So it's and also connecting with the local activists would be really helpful to you. And I know that there are activists working on digital learning, on coding, and these things. So it's reaching to the right people. Yeah.
You're probably the right panelist to address the question about youth. I don't think either of us are particularly well situated.
Didn't we miss one question?
We'll come back to that one, I think.
About youth, so I mentioned the Gul Makai network, and so we are supporting activists in Pakistan. Currently, there are 6-7 of them, and they are local activists. They are reaching to young girls and parents in those regions. They're also doing advocacy nationally. So elections is coming in Pakistan. They're all involved in preparing what should the government, what should the political parties be focusing on in terms of education. So in terms of like giving examples and like in terms of who's one specific person I would recommend, I think there are so many. There are amazing people out there, and I think one is Gulala Ismail, Ariba, and many more that you can easily find out about them and their work. They're all on social media. You can research about them. If you need more information, I can send you that. But they all are aware of Sustainable Development Goals, and whoever is right now working in Pakistan for education, they are aware that Goal 4 and Goal 5 is about education and then equality, and they are following that. And I think that there is a group who's specifically focused on the UN Sustainable Development Goals. So research would help.
Perhaps we could come back to this question about teachers and the status of teachers, because I know in the private sector it accounts for 50% of the schools, but they really churn through teachers, meaning I think the average tenure of a teacher is on the order of a year or 2 years because the turnover is so high. Is there some, again, are there
Well,
promising avenues to
Yeah,
reestablish the status of
you see,
professionals?
the problem is the basic education of the teacher itself. There is a demand for good teachers, and therefore there is also a kind of an effort by people who want to get a good job that they should have a good degree, they should become a good teacher, they should take teaching as a career. You see, in a country like Pakistan, there's massive unemployment. So you don't have to really attract anybody into going into the teaching profession. You've got to sort of frame the recruitment policy in a manner that you recruit the kind of person who wants to make teaching as a career, and then you offer them the potential of their future development and growth. So it's an ongoing effort, but it's improving, and there are people who want to, the government had at one time given this responsibility to the local public representatives, like the members of the assembly, to recruit teachers. And they then recruited people en masse, irrespective of whether they were qualified or not. That's why we are having problem with primary quality of primary teaching. But it's now being reversed, and now there is a certain effort on quality of people that you recruit for teaching.
And do you think that the solutions to that are common in lots of countries, or do you think it is country specific?
Well, I can only tell you about Pakistan. Unlike Malala, who's been all over the world, my knowledge is confined only to Pakistan.
Can we take another round of questions? Whoa, it's much larger this time. So you had your hand up before, I think you had your hand up before, and then we'll achieve some gender balance by having this gentleman. So, yeah.
Hello, thank you for the talk. My name is Zara, and I'm a DPhil student here at the Blavatnik School of Development. So my question is about this point which was made during the discussion about how respect of teachers has eroded over time. And my question to the panel is that something like that is likely to also erode motivation of teachers over time. And it is a difficult problem to solve. But how do you think, what would be the first step to solving that problem, to rebuild respect of teachers, both in the community and also in the government?
Okay. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Gwen. I'm a visiting student at St. Catherine's College. Bear with me, this is a little bit of an explanation. But I've spent time working in Rwanda, and I worked last year at a residential high school in a rural village. And the school was founded to provide education access to orphans of the genocide, with the goal of cultivating their students so that they could return to their homes as leaders and uplift their communities. But the school is, after 10 years, is sort of facing certain dilemmas. First of all, almost all of their students come from conditions of extreme poverty, and the school has found that many of them simply return after their time at the school to those same conditions of poverty. And given that they live in rural areas, seeking employment in Kigali is not feasible for most, and that many of them, especially female students, return to households with significant care demands. So many of them, they find it's hard to progress after their experience at the high school. And related to this, it's also stimulated a degree of soul searching, I think, among the teachers and the administration about what the goal of their students' education should be. Should it be about, the educational experience in itself? Should it be about, being able to seek employment and self-sufficiency? Should it be about attempting to be able to pursue higher education? Essentially, how do we measure the success, so to speak, of education? So I'm wondering, I could get your opinion on, how do we balance these questions, of going about essentially creating sustainable education given broader socioeconomic disadvantages, and how do we conceive of the goal of education in our education activism?
Okay. Yeah.
Hello, everyone. I'm Abrar Chaudhary. I'm a research fellow at the business school. My question was regarding future of work. Like recently, Oxford did this study about future of work, and one of the things that came out was that 50% of the jobs that exist right now will not exist in 10 years, and at least 50% of jobs that will be there in 10 years don't exist right now. So my question is, when you're planning for education, when you're thinking about education, it's not about education, but it's the right skills. And with this youth bulge in Pakistan, how do we ensure that the curriculum matches what's expected outside in the world? Maybe it touches on some of the coding work that we would discuss, but your thoughts would be valuable on this.
Wow, 3 very challenging questions.
No, on the question of giving the teachers the kind of respect that society should give, there is no quick remedy for that, and one has to work towards it. Both educate the students as well as the parents, as well as society, and but there is a general talk about it that the teacher is perhaps one of the most respectful, requires more respect than anybody else because he's creating the future of the country. So this is an ongoing effort, but there is a general talk about it. So it won't happen overnight.
Do you want to address goals, skills, teachers?
I think I would address goals. And we all know, the world would not be the same in the coming 50, 100 years, and things will change. It's already changing. If you remember your time when you weren't going to school, so much would have changed. No phone, no internet, no Wi-Fi. But I think it's more about the skills that you get, and that is the most important thing, not what if something you learn in biology is not the same or something in physics is not the same, and it keeps changing. And I think, to me, when we talk about education, there are 3 things which are important. Firstly, it is 12 years of education. Primary education is not enough. It is important, but it is not sufficient. So we definitely need 12 years of education. The second thing is the quality of education. And I think for that, we need to bring critical thinking. We need to encourage that students have access to science, maths, social studies, arts, all this education. It should not be limited to a few subjects like just English or maths. And also encouraging critical thinking and making sure that children can evaluate things. And then the third is safe education. In many parts of the world, children are displaced. It's more than 60 million. They do not have. They do not feel safe to go to school. In many places, schools are used by the military as their bunkers, as their it becomes an army place. It becomes a military place. So we are encouraging countries to sign the Safe School Act and to make sure that school is a safe place in general. So I think these are the important things. But also free education is important. Many countries don't offer free education to children, and for example, in Kenya, it's free up to like the primary level, the secondary, the lower secondary. After that, you have to pay to get into school, and many children cannot afford it. So these are the important things, and I think. And the quality of education is important for that, because if you develop these skills, they are going to help you in future.
Can I just follow up on this question of sort of goals of education and skills? You have a dual role. Both, you're an industrialist, so you've been, responsible for enterprises that hire people, and you've been engaged in education. One of the sort of paradoxes of the world in some sense is that we have a massively more schooled population, but yet often when you talk to the private sector, they say we can't find anybody to hire that has the skill sets we need. Do you think that's an issue in Pakistan?
I think it's improving, but one of the basic purposes of education really is to instill in the student the desire to keep on learning. Learning is not the end of the road is not getting a degree. You keep on learning for the rest of your life. I mean, at the age of 91, I'm still learning. So it's an ongoing. So you've got to instill this kind of a desire in a person, how to keep on learning. And by learning, you're changing your, the world, as Malala said, is the fashion is changing, the models are changing, the technology is changing. So you've got to keep on, you have to have the skill to adapt yourself to the changing world. And as far as people are concerned, what you need is somebody who can think on his feet. When we employ somebody who can read, write, and think. And then we train this person up. And we instill in this individual the desire to keep on improving himself by giving him the opportunity to be retrained and go to...
But if I could put words in your mouth, and then hopefully you can spit them out if you don't like them, that suggests that the schools should continue to focus on a basic set of skills, read, write, and think, and allow the private sector to worry about the specific skills of what particular industry they're being trained for. Is that?
Yeah, and that is, talking about engineering or science, one of the first things that we did, we set up a School of Science and Engineering at LUMS. And what we did was that anybody who wanted to go into science and engineering must know basic physics, chemistry, mathematics, computer. So, that doesn't change. Technology keeps on changing. So you've got to have that foundation in your learning. And similarly, in general education, other than that, if you give them the right kind of writing, speaking, and reading skills, they should be able to keep on improving and adding on to it.
Okay, let's take another round of questions. So one question there, and then one in the back, just to balance. Sorry, I don't have a better algorithm for choosing questions, but.
Hi, I'm Casey. I'm a visiting student at St. Anne's, and I wanted to return to the topic of health for a moment. So one thing that faces many women in the world, and also in America where I'm from, is the idea of women's health being particularly important to getting women in school. So when there aren't resources to help with things like menstrual cycles, women aren't able to attend regular schooling. So when you're considering the issue of health, are you considering feminine hygiene as well?
Okay.
Hi, my name is Shivani. I'm a student from the LSE. My question is actually related to hers with regards to educational policy. So a lot of schools in South Asia, I'm from India, omit sex education. And, I believe it's quite important in, educating people about their reproductive health, etc. And I just wanted to ask you, how do you think, from a policy perspective as well as on the ground, we could kind of work towards incorporating sex education into schools, and specifically, how do we address the possible backlash? Thank you.
Possible.
Hello, my name is Karol Kras. I'm also from LSE. I have a question regarding e-learning or learning through internet. There are many people who say that this is a magic pill, the solution to hard-to-reach areas, to just give a tablet and fast internet and you can teach a man to fish. And there are those who say that you need a human contact, human interaction, and physical infrastructure. I was wondering, what's your take on this? I don't mean learning to code or learning technology, but learning through technology. Basics, the basic learning through technology.
Do you want to start on this set of questions? And we'll...
Yeah, sure. I'd like to, answer maybe the technology one and learning through technology, having access to education through technology. First, I think it's a really positive thing. We should be excited about it. We should be, curious. Like, how should we use technology to ensure that children can have easy access to education? It can be really effective in refugee camps. In IDP camps, where many organizations, many people would not want to build an infrastructure of school because they are not sure if for how long those people would be refugees. So in those cases, it is a really effective thing. People are already using technology. In one of our projects in Lebanon, they use these electric devices which stores energy. And then if there is no electricity, there's load shedding, what we call in Pakistan. So the electricity goes, and then so they use these devices, and which can be attached to 30 computers. And so then the students can have access to all the data from that device, and they can, when there's no electricity, they can use that. So organizations locally are using these devices, this technology already. And I think this is something that needs to be explored. even if it's not working right now in some cases. Like I've heard about, some places they just give iPads to children and then they leave it, and they think that children are going, no, it has to be sustained, it has to be strategic. And I think what is missing in all this thing about technology and education is a strategy. There is no clear strategy in that, and but the positive thing is that it has shown really good impact in some places, and something that needs to be explored, and something that I'm also looking into, and getting connected with all the people who are interested in this, bringing them together to ensure that we explore this and then find and be strategic in how we can use it for ensuring that children have access to education through technology.
Integration of women's health and sex education?
I think it's crucial. It's crucial. It's important. And but then I think sometimes you just need to introduce things and don't tell the people that you have done it. They won't respond. They would be okay. But if you told them that you are going to do it, then they're a bit, because in biology there are topics about reproduction and things like this. And I still remember, like even with learning about the plants, when the pollen grains and stuff like that, it was a big thing to us, especially if you are in co-education and you just get curious about it, and you're not supposed to just tell your parents. You learn the information, and then people are still learning about it. So it is there, and I think it's just this whole concept of the way that we explain it and the way that we say it. I think it kind of scares some people that, what are we going to be teaching the students? So I think it's just putting it in the right words. But it is crucial. And I think about health, yes, health is important, but also we need to remember that health and education, they kind of are interconnected, they're intertwined, and if girls have access to education, they stay in school, they don't get married early, they are aware of their health, they are aware of hygiene, so in that sense, so you need to ensure that you work on both of these at the same time. I'm more focused on education, but also when I'm doing advocacy, we ensure that we support the health side as well. And also you should know that the health side is already ahead if you compare to the education side. There has been a lot of work done on health, fighting against HIV, AIDS, against polio. You see success, you see that, and I think that's a positive thing because the health sector can learn from that. How to come together from whether it's businesses, whether it's activists, whether it's governments, how to come together and actually solve the issues. And I think it is a time that health sector also, the education sector also do the same, whether it's on the business level, government level, or activist level.
Do you want to respond to any of these questions, or you want to?
No, I think she's covered it all.
Okay. Another round. So one, I'm trying to balance geographically now. 2, 3 over there. So one from over here and then 2 from over there. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Rashid from Wolfson College. I was just wondering, do you think we need a choice of education, i.e. we should have vocational alongside academic education? I think that could be quite important for Pakistan. Even countries like Germany, they have 2 streams, vocational and academic. And vocational education is also quite highly respected. But second thing is, I can't agree more with Malala on the quality of education. What I see in Pakistan is we have so many institutes. Now I'm being a scientist, I can see there's a nanotechnology center, there's a tissue engineering, smart materials, but it's the quality which is lacking. I think unless we improve quality, just having numerous places, numerous institutes, is not going to get anywhere. We've got to have really good quality institutes. And my third point is, we have quite a big critical mass of PhDs who come here, done their degrees, gone back. But what I note, though I've lived here now in Oxford for 30 years, what I find is that here, PhD is a starting point. When you do your doctorate, you learn certain techniques, you learn the ability to critically analyze, and that's the beginning of your career, research career, or your own input into academia. What I find in Pakistan is people go back with fresh PhD. Sometimes they get very senior positions within 2 or 3 years. Maybe their administrative jobs are very attractive, so they're sucked away from the research base. So I think that's a big loss, because the things for which we are training them for, they are rapidly moved away. I know there could be problems of resources or facilities in the labs. So those are my points, these 2, 3 points. So we've got to think in terms of quality and vocational education and the environment. Now do you have a critical mass where people can really contribute? What we are doing it, we're spending a lot of money in exporting these people, moving resources away from primary schools, even basic education. We have these highly trained people, they go back. So it's not a very good investment. I mean, if I may say to, we are spending a lot of money with little return. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, hi, I'm Marielle. I'm in the Department of Education, and I guess sort of jumping off of that question, my background is in international education, so promoting students to study abroad in the US and the UK, and also vice versa. So I guess what do you see as the opportunities, but also the challenges of promoting students from Pakistan or from other countries to study abroad? So I guess, is it more effective to try and make change from staying in one's home country and sort of going through the education system, or is there more opportunity to study abroad and then hope that students will bring those skills and ideas back to their home countries?
And one more over there.
Hi, my name is Jessica. I'm a graduate student in philosophy, and I'm also a former teacher. And I just wanted to touch on the theme that you guys were discussing of local grassroots movements being really important in advancing change. And I was just wondering, what would you say is the first step to just one teacher in a community starting a change?
Wow, that's a great question. Do you want to start on the issue of vocational has come up again?
Yeah, that is happening already. I mean, there are, for instance, you've heard of the Citizen Foundation School. They have over 1,400 schools in the country. And they are now introducing skills. There's another organization called Hunar Foundation that has come up to teach people basic skills so that they can become handy people. And at the same time, they are going through the learning program of being able to read, write, and arithmetic, and taking to the matriculation, and at the same time having some skill. But it's being talked more than being practiced at the moment, but the discussion has started. So these are challenges that, the first thing is to get children to school, have them stay in the school for a long time so that when they have the matriculation, go into the higher school education system. But, it was 2% of the students that made it to college 10 years ago. Now it's up to about 8 or 9%. So there's a big improvement in the college education. But again, quality is something that we have to struggle with because there aren't enough of quality teachers going into that profession.
Okay.
Which question?
Study abroad or local activist, grassroots? What would you've now visited a lot of places, and what do you see as like a first step for grassroots activists?
So I've already talked about grassroots activists, and we are supporting that through Gul Makai Network, which is what I mentioned before. And I think that is important, that is crucial. And what they need is, they're already working, because that's the first thing, they already start. Like my father, he started his school in 1994 with only 4 students, because he was passionate about teaching young girls and boys to believe in themselves, to follow their dreams, and he was a passionate teacher. He never made profit from that school. He was always in loss. But by 2012, we had 1,100 students in that school, and half of them were girls. So I think if we want to support local activists, for that, it is whether it's supporting them through, it's looking at the needs in that area and looking at what is best for them. So engaging with them is important, looking at the issues locally. Sometimes it may be that they need a training, sometimes they may need help in communication, they may need help in their advocacy, they may need financial help to help them start their project. So I think you have to be very specific in terms of where it is, what the person wants to achieve, and what's the best way that you can help them.
The study abroad question, either one of you tackle that?
I respond to that one.
Pakistan has not had a particularly good experience with study abroad.
I don't know. You see, I can talk about our university alums. We have graduated about 12,000 students in the last 33 years. And currently, we have over 1,000 students studying in higher education in top universities of the world, including Oxford, Cambridge, United States. And we have over 1,200 students who have graduated either abroad or within the country who are working across North America, Microsoft, Silicon Valley, Wall Street, Boston area. But 10,000 are working within the country itself, and they are doing extremely well. So there is, I wouldn't call it a brain drain. Even those people who've been abroad for, say, 10, 15, 20 years, they are coming back. They have set up companies abroad, and they're engaging people, employing people, having back offices in Pakistan in the software industry. So I would encourage anybody who wants to go abroad, study abroad, stay abroad for a while, come back with good skills and put it to work.
But also, I think it's important to recognize what are the challenges that they think are there in Pakistan, that they do not feel that they should go back or work there. And I think in Pakistan, we have to, boost and encourage entrepreneurship. And many young people, when they finish their studies, they want to go back and they want to do something. So we have to see what difficulties and challenges they face and how hard it is for someone to be an entrepreneur or start something or, create a startup or find a job, and whether PhDs and these things are appreciated there or not. So I think first recognizing that, what are the challenges to them, but also appreciating an individual's personal decision as well. We, from economics perspective, we want to move labor from here and there, and we want to things. But I think it's individual's decision, and we have to come back to the idea about a person's choice, how they want to live their life, what they want to learn. And I think choices are so important, even in education, like vocational training should be there. People should be allowed to explore different professions and different areas. They should be encouraged to be entrepreneurs and what they want, to be artists, to be doctors, whatever they want. But setting the education system in a way that allows them to find their way, to find their path. In Pakistan, for most girls, you either become a doctor or a teacher. In many schools, the courses are divided into engineering and medicine, and then humanities. And I think it's ensuring that our education system is more flexible, is more open, and encourages students and people to explore more areas rather than just medicine or working in an industry. So that's something that we need to work on.
So it is very near to we're going to 11:30, right? Yes. Minus.
Yes. We don't have to.
What?
We don't have to.
I don't think we have to quit right at 11:30, but I think people have come with an expectation. So why don't I take one last round of question, and now the pressure is on the audience because, of course, you have to ask the best question. You have to think, wow, this is the best question that's ever been asked in this entire session. And so I'm going to take 1, 2, 3. Sorry about that. And each of these is going to be the best question of the entire session. Not that I'm putting pressure on you at all.
Just a little bit of pressure.
Yeah. Okay, I am.
Hi, I'm Kate. I am doing a master's in modern South Asian studies here at Oxford. I have a question about what have you seen if any, the effects of the private school system on the perception of school quality. So you gave the example earlier of the man who was really aware of and passionate for his child to be educated, so he was willing to invest in his child's education. But if that parent is choosing to either withdraw his child from a public school that is free, or just to bypass the free education to pay for private education, that is because he perceives private schools as better, even if that's not the case. So has the perception of quality among policymakers, parents, and teachers changed with this growth of the private school sector? Thanks.
Okay. Over there? Does she not have a mic?
I do.
Oh.
I'm 3, but I think 2 is over there.
What? Hey, how are you?
Hi, great. Good morning. I'm Karen Weaver. I'm here as a visiting researcher at Oxford. Good to see you, Lan. Thank you for facilitating a wonderful panel this morning. We had the opportunity to work together at the Kennedy School at Harvard on many of these issues, particularly as it deals with gender inequity. And my question for the panel this morning is related to the role of technology. I'm particularly interested in how do we use technology as a tool to promote greater pedagogical and curricular innovation and excellence? And then how do we think about technology as an organizing tool, particularly as we think about collaboration and global engagement? And then what advice do you have for policymakers, particularly as you think about the intersectional challenges that they're faced with in terms of class and in terms of gender? Thank you.
Okay. And the last... Oh, yeah. Wait for the mic so that it could... Well, you can be loud and amplified.
Hi, I'm Manika. I am an economist from India, and many of the issues that we face are similar to the development concerns that have been raised. My question is, how holistic is the approach to educational development as opposed to being piecemeal and being only in particular areas in Pakistan, being carried out by only particular agencies in those regions or individuals?
Okay, 3 good questions. You might your father ran a private school, right? You might want to start by addressing the question of perception of quality. Is it accurate? Has it changed? How can that be enhanced? And then address whatever else you want.
I think I mentioned earlier the idea about, quality education, that there are schools there, but there are ghost schools, no teacher goes there. There's gender disparity as well. The quality is not good. In some primary school, there are only 2 classrooms and 1 teacher who's supposed to teach all the subjects. And usually the teachers are not quality teachers, and there's corruption as well. So that has changed this, that has created this perception that private schools are always better than state schools, especially in Pakistan at least. And I think if we do work on state schools, if we make them better, I think parents would definitely like to have their children go to state schools and have free education, but quality education. And I think also there's Financing the Future, this initiative, which is to support the local private schools through funding and allow them to. So I'm not like saying that private schools are better, or so we should focus on private, or state schools are better, so we should stay on state schools. I think both the options are there, and I think both should be explored. The Financing the Future is a great initiative through which I think they would be encouraging countries and to invest in local private schools, and I think which is good, which is a positive thing. But also we need to work on the state schools as well, because if there are resources there, if there is money that is spent there and the money gets lost and things are not working, so we have to change the system and fix it. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I mean, I'll just add on to this. In the Punjab, the government are experimenting of handing over some of the state schools to the private sector. and then, not cutting off the aid. They would sort of still give the money that they were spending on running as an entirely public school, but give this money to the private sector so that in many instances where they can do a better job. So that is moving in that direction.
The question about piecemeal and sort of global actors, I think piecemeal is a big issue if the whole system is kind of broken, trying to fix it a piece at a time.
I think it's across the board. There is no preferred area where they want to concentrate on education in this area and neglect another area.
I don't mean area-wise. I think the piecemeal question was about.
Yeah, the question is that when we look at development, one of the challenges of development is that it takes place regionally. So even in India, for instance, some states are far more developed than others.
Yeah.
So that becomes, so how can an approach be more holistic in order to ensure that there is at least some parity in the development taking place across regions?
It depends on the leadership of that particular area. For instance, if you look at Pakistan, you've got the northern areas, on bordering the Chinese border, Gilgit, Skardu and that area, Hunza, where the Aga Khan rural support program has been working for the last 20 years. And we find that in a place like Lums, we have a constant stream of students who are able to get into Lums because it's from that area. So there are certain pockets. It depends on the local leadership. Not that money is not being spent equally in all the regions.
Did you hear about Karen now? I'm sorry.
But it depends on the individual who is looking after a particular area as to how innovative, how committed he or she is towards developing the people. So that is something which is, depending on the individual rather than the region itself.
And anything on Karen's question?
I'm afraid I've forgotten that.
I think I think it was more global collaboration than global technology.
I think it's again similar to your question earlier. It's using technology, education through technology, and I think something that is there. People are working on it, but I think for that, this sector needs to come together and also encouraging governments who are making policy, people who are making policy, and taking that there. So in G7, we're pushing. So it's positive so far because they are reaching to different organizations. Like they have a Council of Women Leadership. Canada has started it. So ensuring that they have a council or an advisory group of people who are expert in technology, people who are expert in education, in local activism, and reaching to the right people when you are writing down the policy. So it's not a few people sitting in the office who think they know what is best, but it's just trying to explore the area a bit more, and I do see potential there.
May I just add on to this one? There is a fair amount of effort being made in the last 15 years. We have an open university, for instance, based in Islamabad, which has tens of thousands of students spread all over the country. And we have a virtual university based in Lahore, which is giving technical education and is awarding degrees and holding examinations all based on technology. This is within the country. And now, in a place like Lums, we have an international collaboration with schools abroad where we have a classroom discussion between Tufts and ourselves. So it's happening, but on a very limited scale.
Okay, I think join me in thanking our guests for a...
I'd like to thank you and the organizers. This is the first time I've been at Oxford, so it's been a real...
I think the dean has arrived, so I think... maybe you just want to come say 1-2 words to close? Or did you just mean to slip in unnoticed?
Unaccustomed as I am, saying any words. No, just to say a huge welcome to our speakers and guests this morning. A proper welcome to Lant, who's joined the school, and we're thrilled to have you here, Lant. A very warm welcome to Malala, and I hope you'll, think about this school as a resource for all your endeavours. and a lot of very brilliant people here to help you in that passage. And thank you, sir, for your wisdom and the lessons you've learned today. So, as Lant will have said at the beginning, education is something that the school takes really seriously. It's the future for every country. The RISE project in the school is one we're very, very proud of. And so to have this panel here today is just terrific. So, and thank you all for coming and learning more about what our guests have had to say. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks again.